Okay, our video got cut off there. We'll just continue from where that left off. During basketball season, Reardon beat us 72-45 and 86-50, our only 2 losses of the season. Rowdy scored 24 points in the first game and 40 in the second game. So clearly Rowdy is a pretty darn good basketball player. I scored 9 points in each game, going 3 for 10 on 3-pointers in the first game and 3 for 15 in the second. Those were my 2 worst games of the season. Okay, so clearly both Rowdy and Junior play basketball, Rowdy being a much better basketball player though than Junior. So nextly here, during baseball season, Rowdy hit 3 home runs in the first game against Reardon and 2 home runs in the second. But we still lost by scores of 17-3 and 12-2. I played in both losses and struck out 7 times and was hit by a pitch once. Sad thing is, getting hit like that was my only hit of the season. After baseball season, I led the Well-Pennant Junior Academic Bowl team against Reardon Junior High, and we lost by a grand total of 50-1. Yep, we only answered 1 question correctly. I was the only kid, white or Indian, who knew that Charles Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities. And let me tell you, we Indians were the worst of times, and those Reardon kids were the best of times. So that's a quote taken from this novel. The quote said, "It was the worst of times, it was the best of times." End of quote. Those kids, those Reardon kids, were magnificent. They knew everything, and they were beautiful. They were beautiful and smart. They were beautiful and smart and epic. They were filled with hope. I don't know if hope is white, but I do know that hope for me is like some mythical creature flying through the air. Yeah, so meaning it didn't seem like it was even possible, right? Hope. Man, I was scared of those Reardon kids, and maybe I was scared of hope too. But Rowdy absolutely hated all of it. "Rowdy," I said, "I am going to Reardon tomorrow." For the first time, he saw that I was serious, but he didn't want me to be serious. "You'll never do it," he said. "You're too scared." "I'm going," I said. "No way, you're a wuss." "I'm doing it." "You're a pussy." "I'm going to Reardon tomorrow." "You really serious?" "Rowdy," I said, "I'm as serious as a tumor." He coughed, turned away from me. I touched his shoulder. Why did I touch his shoulder? I don't know. I was stupid. Rowdy swung around and shoved me. "Don't touch me, you retarded fag," he yelled. Now, this is one of the lines that we talked before about how the novel is censored in some schools. Some parents took a lot of offense to some of the statements and some of the wording in this novel. Now, here's one of the lines that received a lot of negative feedback. What I want to point out to you is the title again. The title here is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. The title is not The Absolutely Partly True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. So what the author is writing here is reality. So it's 100% absolutely true. So would somebody, in this scenario like this, would the best friend call the other best friend something terrible like this? And I'm not saying this is okay. I actually don't think this is okay to say to somebody. But does it represent the absolutely, truth, the absolute truth of what would really happen between two people this age? Unfortunately, I think it does. My heart broke into 14 pieces, one for each year that Rowdy and I had been best friends. I started crying. That wasn't surprising at all, but Rowdy started crying too, and he hated that. He wiped his eyes, stared at his wet hand, and screamed. I'm sure that everybody on the res heard that scream. It was the worst thing I'd ever heard. It was pain, pure pain. "Rowdy, I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry." He kept screaming. "You can still come with me," I said. "You're still my best friend." Rowdy stopped screaming with his mouth, but he kept screaming with his eyes. You always thought you were better than me, he yelled. No, I don't think I'm better than anybody. I think I'm worse than everybody. Again, so here we have a statement that shows how big Junior's low self-esteem is. He is really suffering with low self-esteem. He doesn't think he's better than anybody. In fact, he says, I'm worse than everybody. Why are you leaving? I have to go. I'm going to die if I don't leave. Wow. I touched his shoulder again, and Rowdy flinched. Yes, I touched him again. What kind of idiot was I? I was the kind of idiot that got punched hard in the face by his best friend. Bang! Rowdy punched me. Bang! I hit the ground, and bang! My nose bled like a firework. I stayed on the ground for a long time after Rowdy walked away. I stupidly hoped that time would stand still if I stayed still, but I had to stand eventually. And when I did, I knew that my best friend had become my worst enemy. Wow, so this is obviously a picture of Rowdy. I hate you, you suck, you white lover. Yeah. All right, so let's keep going here. Chapter 8, how to fight monsters. The next morning, Dad drove me the 22 miles to Reardon. Again, so he lives on a reserve. No bus comes to the reserve for this. I'm scared, I said. I'm scared too, Dad said. He hugged me close. His breath smelled like mouthwash and lime vodka. You don't have to do this, he said. You can always go back to the res school. No, I said. I have to do this. Can you imagine what would have happened to me if I'd turned around and gone back to the res school? I would have been pummeled, mutilated, crucified. You can't just betray your tribe and then change your mind 10 minutes later. I was on a one-way bridge. There was no way to turn around, even if I wanted to. So again, remember here, he's afraid that people are going to hate him because he betrayed his tribe, right? His people on the res. So he's going to join the enemy. And his tribe, the people in the res, are not going to like that one bit. For one thing, it makes him look like he thinks he's a lot better than the rest of them, right? Just remember this, my father said, those white people aren't better than you. But he was so wrong, and he knew he was wrong. He was the loser Indian father of a loser Indian son, living in a world built for winners. So again, showing how much his low self-esteem controls him, right? He feels like a loser. But he loved me so much. He hugged me even closer. This is a great thing, he said. You're so brave. You're a warrior. It was the best thing he could have said. Hey, here's some lunch money, he said, and handed me $1. We were poor enough to get free lunch, but I didn't want to be the only Indian and a sad sack who needed charity. Thanks, Dad, I said. I love you, he said. I love you too. I felt stronger, so I stepped out of the car and walked to the front door. It was locked. So I stood alone on the sidewalk and watched my father drive away. I hoped he'd drive right home and not stop at a bar and spend whatever money he had left. I hoped he'd remember to come back and pick me up after school. I stood alone at the front door for a few very long minutes. It was still early and I had a black eye from Rowdy's goodbye punch. No, I had a purple, blue, yellow, and black eye. It looked like modern art. He's trying to be positive about it. Yeah, so we know he belongs to that Black Eye of the Month club, right? Then the white kids began arriving for school. They surrounded me. Those kids weren't just white. They were translucent. I could see the blue veins running through their skin like rivers. Most of the kids were my size or smaller, but they were 10 or 12 monster dudes. But there were 10 or 12 monster dudes, giant white guys. They looked like men, not boys. They had to be seniors. Some of them looked like they had to shave 2 or 3 times a day. They stared at me. The Indian boy with the black eye and swollen nose. My going away gifts from Rowdy. Gee, thanks, best friend. Those white kids couldn't believe their eyes. They stared at me like I was Bigfoot or a UFO. So again, reinforcing that he does not belong, right? He just does not belong. What was I doing at Reardon, whose mascot was an Indian, thereby making me the only other Indian in town, right? So what was I doing in racist Reardon, where no more than half of every graduating class went to college? Nobody in my family had ever gone near a college. Reardon was the opposite of the res. It was the opposite of my family. It was the opposite of me. I didn't deserve to be there. I knew it. All those kids knew it. Indians don't deserve shit. Okay, so again, here we see that he is facing a lot of low self-esteem, right? Low self-esteem. Like he doesn't deserve anything. Okay, so here we see that he has drawn a comic comparing the white kids at Reardon to how he feels, right? So let's take a look at the white kids. A bright future, Ralph Lauren shirt, ergonomic backpack with a cell phone. They have positive role models. They have expensive watches, Tommy Hilfiger khakis, lots of hope, and of course the latest Air Jordans are most expensive runners. So this is what he encountered when he went to Reardon. Now this is a vision of him. He's indigenous, a vanishing past, Kmart t-shirt, a family history of diabetes and cancer, Sears blue jeans, 2 pairs for $19.99, no watch, it's skin 30, Glad garbage bag for a book bag. Wow, bone-crushing reality. Canvas tennis shoes purchased in aisle 7 of Safeway supermarket. Quite a difference. So, feeling worthless and stupid, I just waited. And pretty soon a janitor opened the front door and all of the other kids strolled inside. I stayed outside. Maybe I could just drop out of school completely. I could go live in the woods like a hermit, like a real Indian. Of course, since I was allergic to pretty much every plant that grew on earth, I would have been a real Indian with a head full of snot. Okay, I said to myself, here I go. I walked into the school, made my way to the front office, and told them who I was. Oh, you're the one from the reservation, the secretary said. Yeah, I said. I couldn't tell if she thought the reservation was good or bad. My name is Melinda, she said. Welcome to Reardon High School. Here's your schedule, a copy of the school constitution and moral code, and a temporary student ID. We've got you assigned to Mr. Grant for homeroom. You better hustle on down there. You're late. Where is that? I asked. We've only got one hallway here, she said and smiled. She had red hair and green eyes and was kind of sexy for an old woman. It's all the way down on the left. I shoved the paperwork into my backpack and hustled down to my homeroom. So again, these kinds of statements have, contributed to why some people want this book banned. But again, pointing out here that does this represent something that he really, truly, absolutely thought? Well, he's a teenage boy. It's very likely that he did, right? So again, this is the real truth, not some sanitized version of the truth, but the book is the real, absolute truth, right? Okay. I shoved the paperwork into my backpack and hustled down to my homeroom. I paused a second at the door and then walked inside. Everybody, all of the students and the teacher, stopped to stare at me. Nice. They stared hard, like I was bad weather. Take your seat, the teacher said. He was a muscular guy. He had to be a football coach. I walked down the aisle and sat in the back row and tried to ignore all the stares and whispers until a blonde girl leaned over toward me. Penelope. My name's Penelope. Totally, absolutely gorgeous. So again, this is his true account, his absolutely true account of what he thought. And we know that this is true. He's got it bad for this Penelope. Yes, there are places left in the world where people are named Penelope. I was emotionally erect. What's your name? Penelope asked. Junior, I said. She laughed and told her girlfriend at the next desk. My name was Junior. They both laughed. Word spread around the room, and pretty soon everybody was laughing. They were laughing at my name. I had no idea that Junior was a weird name. It's a common name on my res, on any res. You walk into any trading post on any res in the United States and shout, "Hey, Junior!" And 17 guys will turn around, and 3 women. But there were no other people named Junior in Reardon. So I was being laughed at because I was the only one who had that silly name. And then I felt smaller because the teacher was taking roll and he called out my name. Arnold Spirit, the teacher said. No, he yelled it. He was so big and muscular that his whisper was probably a scream. Here, I said as quietly as possible. My whisper was only a whisper. Speak up, the teacher said. Here, I said. My name is Mr. Grant, he said. I'm here, Mr. Grant. He moved on to the other students, but Penelope leaned over toward me again. But she wasn't laughing at all. She was mad now. I thought you said your name was Junior, Penelope asked, or said. She accused me of telling her my real name. Well, okay, it wasn't completely my real name. My full name is Arnold Spirit Jr., but nobody calls me that. Everybody calls me Junior. Well, every other Indian calls me Junior. My name is Junior, I said, and my name is Arnold. It's Junior and Arnold. I'm both. I felt like 2 different people inside one body. Yeah. So this is interesting because we know the author, Sherman Alexie, is bipolar, right? Having an identity crisis, 2 different people inside of him, which is what Sherman Alexie felt like being bipolar. No, I felt like a magician slicing myself in half, with Junior living on the north side of the Spokane River and Arnold living on the south. Where are you from? She asked. She was so pretty and her eyes were so blue. I was suddenly aware that she was the prettiest girl I had ever seen up close. She was movie star pretty. Hey, she said, I asked you where you're from. Wow, she was tough. Well, Pennant, I said, up on the the reservation. Oh, she said, that's why you talk so funny. And yes, I had that stutter and lisp, but I also had a sing-song reservation accent that made everything sound like a bad poem. Man, I was freaked. I didn't say another word for 6 days. And on the 7th day, I got into the weirdest fist fight of my life. But before I tell you about the weirdest fist fight of my life, I have to tell you. So here it is. The unofficial and unwritten, but you better follow them or you're going to get beaten twice as hard, Spokane Indian rules of fisticuffs, of having a fist fight. Number 1, if somebody insults you, then you have to fight them. Number 2, if you think somebody's going to insult you, then you have to fight them. Number 3, if you think somebody is thinking about insulting you, then you have to fight him. If somebody insults any of your family or friends, or you think they're going to insult your family and friends, or if you think they're thinking about insulting your family or friends, then you have to fight him. Number 5, you should never fight a girl unless she insults you, your family or your friends. Then you have to fight her. Number 6, if somebody beats up your father or your mother, then you have to fight the son and or daughter of the person who beat up your mother or father. Number 7, if your mother or father beats up somebody, then that person's son or daughter will fight you. 8, you must always pick fights with the sons and or daughters of any Indians who work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Number 9, you must always pick fights with the sons and or daughters of any white people who live anywhere on the reservation. Number 10. If you get into a fight with somebody who is sure to beat you up, then you must throw the first punch because it's the only punch you'll ever get to throw. And then, number 11, in any fight, the loser is the first one who cries. I know those rules. I'd memorized those rules. I'd lived my life by those rules. I got into my first fist fight when I was 3 years old, and I'd been in dozens since. My all-time record was 5 wins and 112 losses. Yeah, I was a terrible fighter. I was a human punching bag. I lost fights to boys, girls, and kids half my age. One bully, Mika, made me beat myself up. Yes, he made me punch myself in the face 3 times. I'm the only Indian in the history of the world who ever lost a fight with himself. Now remember, he does have water on the brain, right? He has hydrocephalus. So being so fragile, I'm sure, made him, very afraid to be in fights. Okay, so now that you know about the rules, then I can tell you that I went from being a small target in Wellpinit to being a larger target in Reardon. Well, let's get something straight. All of those pretty white girls ignored me. But that was okay. Indian girls ignored me too, so I was used to it. And let's face it, most of the white boys ignored me too. But there were a few of those Reardon boys, the big jocks, who paid special attention to me. None of those guys punched me or got violent. After all, I was a reservation Indian, and no matter how geeky and weak I appeared to be, I was still a potential killer. Right? So they were kind of racist, judging him right off. So mostly they called me names. Lots of names. Okay, so again, this establishes that there's quite a bit of bullying at Reardon. Chief, squaw boy, chief, redskin, tonto, sitting bull, chief. So everybody else bullying him. And again, this is his absolutely true experience, right? The narrators. And yeah, those were bad enough names, but I could handle them, especially when some huge monster boy was insulting me. But I knew I'd have to put a stop to it eventually, or I'd always be known as Chief or Tonto or Squaw Boy. But I was scared. I wasn't scared of fist fighting with those boys. I'd been in plenty of fights. And I wasn't scared of losing fights with them either. I'd lost most every fight I'd been in. I was afraid those monsters were going to kill me. And I don't mean kill as in a metaphor. I mean kill as in beat me to literal death. So weak and poor and scared. I let them call me names while I tried to figure out what to do. And it might have continued that way if Roger the Giant hadn't taken it too far. Okay, so here we're going to meet Roger the Giant. Something happened here with him. It was lunchtime, and I was standing outside by the weird sculpture that was supposed to be an Indian. I was studying the sky like I was an astronomer, except it was daytime, and I didn't have a telescope. So I was just an idiot. Roger the Giant and his gang of giants strutted over to me. "Hey, Chief," Roger said. It seemed like he was 7 feet tall and 300 pounds. He was a farm boy who carried squealing pigs around like they were already thin slices of bacon, so he's pretty strong. I stared at Roger and tried to look tough. I read once that you can scare away a charging bear if you wave your arms and try to look big. But I figured I just looked like a terrified idiot having an arm seizure. "Hey, Chief," Roger said. "You want to hear a joke?" "Sure," I said. "Did you know that Indians are living proof that niggers fuck buffaloes?" What? Again, so here's another line that is a line that many people believe is reason why this book should be censored. But again, this is the absolutely true diary. Would they actually truly say this? They actually truly would. Not that I agree with it. I don't agree with it. In fact, I think it's pretty offensive. But is it the truth? It is the truth, unfortunately. I felt like Roger had kicked me in the face. That was the most racist thing I'd ever heard in my life. So Roger went too far. Roger and his friends were laughing like crazy. I hated them, and I knew I had to do something big. I couldn't let them get away with that shit. I wasn't just defending myself. I was defending Indians, black people, and buffalo. So I punched Roger in the face. He wasn't laughing when he landed on his ass, and he wasn't laughing when his nose bled like red fireworks. I struck some fake karate pose because I figured Roger's gang was going to attack me for bloodying their leader, but they just stared at me. They were shocked. "You punched me," Roger said. His voice was thick with blood. "I can't believe you punched me." He sounded insulted. He sounded like his poor little feelings had been hurt. I couldn't believe it. He acted like he was the one who'd been wronged. "You're an animal," he said. I felt brave all of a sudden. Yeah, maybe it was just a stupid and immature schoolyard fight. Or maybe it was the most important moment of my life. Maybe I was telling the world that I was no longer a human target. Yeah, important line here. "You meet me after school right here," I said. "Why?" he asked. I couldn't believe he was so stupid. "'Cause we're going to finish this fight." "You're crazy," Roger said. He got to his feet and walked away. His gang stared at me like I was a serial killer, and then they followed their leader. I was absolutely confused. I had followed the rules of fighting. I had behaved exactly the way I was supposed to behave, but these white boys had ignored the rules. In fact, they followed a whole other set of mysterious rules where people apparently did not get into fistfights. "Oh, wait!" I called after Roger. "What do you want?" Roger asked. "What are the rules?" "What rules?" I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there, red and mute, like a stop sign. Roger and his friends disappeared. I felt like somebody had shoved me into a rocket ship and blasted me to a new planet. I was a freaky alien, and there was absolutely no way to get home. Yeah, so he doesn't know what's going on. Let's take a look here at chapter 9. Grandmother gives me some advice. I went home that night completely confused and terrified. If I'd punched an Indian in the face, then he would have spent days plotting his revenge. And I imagined that white guys would also want revenge after getting punched in the face. So I figured Roger was going to run me over with a farm tractor or a combine or grain truck or runaway pig. I wished Rowdy was still my best friend, or even friend. I could have sent him after Roger. It would have been like King Kong battling Godzilla. I realized how much of my self-worth, my sense of safety, was based on Rowdy's fists. But Rowdy hated me, and Roger hated me. I was good at being hated by guys who could kick my ass. It's not a talent you really want to have. My mother and father weren't home, so I turned to my grandmother for advice. "Grandma," I asked, "I punched this big guy in the face, and he just walked away. And now I'm afraid he's going to kill me." "Why'd you punch him?" she asked. "He was bullying me." "You should have just walked away. He called me chief and squaw boy." "Then you should have kicked him in the balls," she said. She pretended to kick a big guy in the crotch, and we both laughed. "Did he hit you?" she asked. "No, not at all," I said. "Not even after you hit him?" "Nope." "And he's a big guy?" "Gigantic. I bet he could take Rowdy down." "Wow," she said. "It's strange, isn't it?" I asked. "What does it mean?" Grandma thought hard for a while. I think it means he respects you," she said. "Respect? No way." "Yes way. You see, you men and boys are like a pack of wild dogs. This giant boy is the alpha male of the school, and you're the new dog. So he just pushed you around a bit to see how tough you are." "But I'm not tough at all," I said. So here's his grandmother. So cute. Bandana on her head.